The Imperial shields were founded in early M38 in the 23rd Sentinel founding as a crusading chapter with the remit of going through various Imperial worlds, specifically in the Ultima Segmentum, to investigate worlds that had gone dark or at risk for rebellion. Their primogenitors are the Imperial Fists and Rogel Dawn. Background history. The Platia campaign. After being founded in M38, the Imperial shields did not seem to engage in any recorded major engagement for at least 200 years. It is thought in this time they were a standard, codex-compliant chapter, as their typical resupplies were what a chapter might be expected. The first major engagement the chapter committed to, that is known to the Imperial history, was the defense of the agri-world Palania in 578 M38. The Imperial shields would engage in their first record major action, the defense of the agri-world Platia. This conflict pitted the Imperial shields against the Chaos Fleet that had slipped out of the Eye of Terror during the Ninth Black Crusade some years earlier. The Chaos Fleet was larger than that of the Imperial shields, but also of mostly smaller vessels, although it was spearheaded by a single battleship of post-heresy design. The chapter master, still the original one of the founding, and from the Imperial Fists themselves, ordered a fairly standard tactic, seeing the Chaos Fleet making all haste for the planet. He ordered the shields to punch straight through the Chaos Fleet in a single pass, drop the Astartes below, and have the fleet fall back as Imperial Navy resources made their way to the system. Thanks to the heavy weapons and armor typical of Space Marine vessels and determination, the envy of any Fist successor, the shields managed the punch clean through the now orbiting Chaos Fleet to drop their lethal cargo in support of the beleaguered defenders. However, not all would go according to the plan, with the strike cruiser carrying the 7th Reverse Company being forced to break off and withdraw. On the planet's surface, the furious drop pod assault shattered the traitor assault on the hastily prepared defensive lines of the local PDF, which with typical Fist efficiency were quickly rebuilt and solidified. Not much else is known about the battle on the surface due to only intermittent Vox contact with the fleet, but as the Shield fleet picked apart the Chaos Fleet with the occasional skim attack to prevent bombardments, it is known the shields on the planet below held, taking slower, fewer and fewer losses as defenses were continually built up, but they were undoubtedly being pushed back. For 3 full months, this grinding fight persisted until finally the traitors began their largest assault of the fort below, hoping to break it before Imperial reinforcements showed up. This final assault, combined with a planetary bombardment that was continued despite fleet losses as the Shield fleet tried to stop it, overwhelmed the Shield defenses, the Loyalists slaughtered to a man as the Imperial sector fleet translated in the system. With the reinforcements, the Chaos Fleet and their exhausted ground forces were annihilated in quick order, allowing at least some of the Fallen's gene seed to be recovered intact, a fortunate turn on a massive loss of Astartes. It is thought that this near-entire chapter wipe left the chapter combat ineffective for quite some time, as well as being the start of the chapter's divergence from the Codex Astartes, specifically how the 7th Reverse Company is never allowed into battle, with the 2nd to 6th companies being battle companies instead of standard 2nd and 5th. It is also considered why the chapter has a large contingent of non-combat scouts, although typically these scout marines are the youngest scouts and still perform vital duties. The Sharks Genocide, 193 M41. The Imperial shields fight a campaign against the minor Xenos race on the rimward side of the Ultima Segmentum. The race, known as the Sharks, were defied normal classification, as their appearance was vaguely insectoid with 4 legs, an upright torso with 2 arms, with a tail that seemed to differ in purpose from specimen to specimen. Their head had 4 reptilian-like eyes and a crab-like mouth, and their body was covered in exoskeleton that could have proven difficult for a lasgun to penetrate. Technologically, they had not yet invented warp travel, nor seemed to have moved beyond their inner solar system. Despite this relatively permissive state, the Xenos proved tenacious fighters with an incredibly high population, charging the bolter lines of the shields in massive waves, especially once what little armoured vehicles they had proved easy to destroy with even a bolt round due to their thin armour. While very few Astartes were lost, as the armies and population of the Shaxa were decimated, they began reverting to guerrilla warfare, further slowing down the campaign. It took nearly 7 years for the last Shaxa holdout to be destroyed, but the planet had been purged and claimed for the Imperium at the cost of only a couple Astartes and tens of millions of spent bolter rounds. The Battle over Rhetor, 538 M41. The Imperial shields were ambushed by a greenskin freebooter fleet led by a Captain Grosnock, who were raiding the shipping lanes of an Imperial world by the name of Helion. In the week-long running battle around the system, the Astartes finally cornered the greenskin above the dwarf planet Rhetor. Nearly the entire fleet of the chapter was committed, braving the firepower of the greenskin pirate fleet of a killer cruiser and a variety of other-sized vessels, to board the killer cruiser with 2 full companies, including the veteran First Company, before the fleet focused on cleaning the rest of the fleet. The companies cut a bloody swath to the Orc captain, and Terminator veteran Fyron cut the Orc down with a blast from his Stormbolter. After slaying the war boss, the Orc fleet became easy pickings, and the Astartes aboard the killer cruiser set the vessel to self-destruct before evacuating. War Goldskull, from 985 M41 to 013 M42. The Imperial shields joined the defense of the remote yet advanced Sedassus Domanus sector against War Goldskull, moving to assist in breaking the siege of a planet called Fraternus. In the massive battle over the planet, the chapter fleet would take significant damage. The battle barge Fury of Dawn was lost during a charge through the Orc blockade, as a maneuver similar to that pulled over Placia was made. Over 100 Astartes were lost aboard the vessel and during the drop to the surface. In the wider battle, trying to shatter the Orc blockade, 2 strike cruisers were lost with roughly half hands, taking 100 more Astartes between the 2. However, the Greenskins were eventually broken, finally turning the tide of the war in the favour of the Imperium. In the 30-ish years following the victory above Fraternus, the Imperial shields helped what remained of the Sedasian sector battle fleets to purge the Greenskins and drive them out of the sector, but were never able to confirm the death of the war boss Goldskull, who was assumed killed with the destruction of his flagship in the final battle of the war, the liberation of Adrenalus. Following the war, in gratitude for their assistance in defeating Goldskull, the sector would help replace the fleet's losses suffered by the chapter, as well as granting them a new battle barge, long dubbed the Bastion of Light, that serves as their fortress monastery to this day. The Imperial shields are also known to recruit heavily from the sector, having been impressed by the tenacity of the regiments of the sector in the face of the war. Service in the Indomitus Crusade, from 085 M42 to 113 M42. The Imperial shields joined the Indomitus Crusade under Rebuti Gilliman, where they are granted enough Primaris Marines to totally replace the losses not yet made up by recruitment from War Goldskull, as well as access to more advanced weaponry and armor. The chapter at this time decided to create what they believe should be the true model for treatment of the Primaris to ensure the bonds of brotherhood within the chapter are never risked. They decided to not form intercessors or other Primaris-only squads, mixing Primaris with standard Astartes in their squads. Their time serving in the Indomitus Crusade came to an end after the devastation of Baal, after which they returned to service to the wider Imperium, and their role of taking part in checking worlds with whom communication has been lost has become ever more important in a time when nearly every planet faces some sort of invasion. Organization of the Imperial shields are mostly Codex compliant, with a few notable exceptions, such as the lack of traditional assault marines. In their stead, every marine not equipped with a heavy weapon has a chain or power sword, and thus can fulfill either role. Jump packs are also not used, except to enable the Astartes to jump to a more advantageous position to fire down on the enemy. Assault Marines in the Shields tend to be a tactical squad outfitted and assigned to being the clearer squad of an assault, typically with a flamer, heavy flamer, melter or heavy melter, but do not engage in melee first. Another deviation is that the 6th Company is also equipped as a standard battle company, with the 7th Company being held in reserve at all times to prevent the chapter from being totally wiped out. As such, the 7th Company sees no permanently assigned Astartes and are in charge of the recruitment and training of aspirants and neophytes. After the introduction of Primaris Lieutenants, what had before typically been an informal field commanding role was implemented into the company command structure, with 2 per company controlling 3 squads each. The chapter is also unique in totally integrating its Primaris into its ranks, refusing to acknowledge their difference and do not refer to them as Primaris or put them in separate squads. Another difference in the organization of the Imperial Shields and that of the Codex Astartes is the granting of power armor and camo cloaks to the oldest 3 squads of the Scout Company, typically those scouts who are a year away of being elevated to the Devastators. These scouts retain their original duties, however it is thought to help train them to be grown used to the armor and how it feels, the data it provides, and the movement it provides without having to learn it while having to spot for and protect the Devastators. With the introduction of the Primaris Marines and their related equipment, the Mark 7 armor these scouts originally used has been changed to the Mark 10 Phobos pattern of the Reavers, and the top 3 scout squads are now granted this armor to assist in their duties, although the skullhead has been replaced with a standard Mark 10 helmet. While the Imperial Shields do not venerate the Emperor as a god, they do see him as being more than just a man. While what this means in practical terms isn't clear, it does mean that it is often hard to tell the difference between worship and veneration with the Astartes of the chapter towards the Emperor. In their thoughts on their primogenitor, the chapter is convinced that Rogel Dawn yet lives, and thus paint the left fist of their armor crimson red in recognition of the hand lost by their Primarch. However, they believe that Dawn did not wish to be hunted for, and as such do not attempt to find their Genefather, believing that Dawn shall return in the final battle against Chaos, call the Last Wall Protocol, and shatter Chaos against the mighty bulwark defense of a renewed Imperial Fist Legion. Armory. The chapter does not have the same desire for relics as many other chapters, with an eye on pragmatism. They are happy to receive ancient designs such as cataphracti and similar items of advanced design. However, they shun the thought of venerating the smaller caliber Phobos bolters or older suits of regular power armor they see as having inferior systems. As such, in combination to the relative youth of the chapter has no set of Mark 3 to 6 armor, with their relic armor being a couple hundred suits of Mark 7 armor remaining from their founding that are used mainly to equip the reserve companies. Most normal Astartes in the chapter wear the Mark 8 errant armor, and the Tech Marines are rumored to be working on developing a pattern of the Mark 10 armor of the Primaris for the Standard Marines. The Imperial Shields, as a fleet-based chapter, have no set single world for recruitment, with 2 different recruitment styles present in chapter history. The first style was that of a regular crusading chapter and lasted from their founding until roughly 985 M41, where they would recruit aspirants from worlds they encountered and had hardly enough stock to survive the trials. After assisting in the defeat of War Goldskull in 013 M42, the chapter would retain its crusading nature, but would return to the Sedasus Domanus sector to recruit from the Scholae Progenemesque military academies of the sector. There are 3 major trials an aspirant must pass. The trial of blood, in which the blood is checked for purity and readiness to receive the gene seed. The trial of endurance, in which aspirant must make it through 4 weeks of intense physical training. And the trial of war, in which the aspirant must coordinate with a random selection of his fellows to defeat a similarly sized and random formation of other aspirants in mock battle. Past this, the passage from aspirant to neophyte to scout marine is much like that of any other chapter, although the useless Betcher's gland of the Imperial Fist gene seed is not implanted into the non-primaris neophytes.